Welcome to episode 258 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Tom Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell as we approach 900 subscribers and getting close to that 1,000 number, which we really would like to hit. Make sure you go like and subscribe there as well. And if you can't watch on the video side, listen wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Acast, YouTube Premium. If it has an audio capability, you can listen to our show. I promise. Also, we are presented by Playback. We've had a good partnership with them. We've done many sports, whether it's NBA, the Olympics, and the NBA Finals, and we have a lot of fun with them. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can up on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. We do have a lot of NBA on the docket, which we are working towards. So like we said, just follow our social medias at ETB Network for when we put those schedules out. All right. This is another classic edition of Nick and Tom Flip the Rundown.
Yeah, this is a classic edition of us flipping the rundown. Shout out to Dan and Nico and the guys behind the scenes that basically had to do a complete rework of some of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on here because everything is completely different. I mean, the lead story is the lead story of itself. I mean, I don't think anybody expected, Nick, a Saturday night news dump where all of a sudden inside the NBA, there was an update on that.
Well, let's put it this way. It's not the specific update that we expected.
Yeah. But also nobody expected that New York football was going to explode the last couple of days. On my end and on your end. On my end with the quarterback position. And then on your end, well, I guess it's still at the quarterback position. It's just a matter of who wears the pants in the New York Jets household.
RELAX.
Blame Aaron Rodgers.
Of course. Some other big NBA stuff, though. The Cleveland Cavaliers doing something that only 5 other teams have done in NBA history, and that's starting a season 15-0.
Impressive.
Meanwhile, on the complete opposite of the spectrum, the 76ers, who entered the night that we were recording this 2-11 in the NBA, their locker rooms appears to be exploding. Exploding just like how Netflix streams were exploding during the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight for a variety of reasons.
I can't wait to talk about this. I actually watched all the important fights, so I have barrels in the cannon ready to go to actually talk about this.
And then we have a case of one Major League Baseball team paying another Major League Baseball team to play at one of their spring training facility, obviously for a tragic reason. So,
I mean, are we really going to have to pull the banner out for the first time in a long time?
I don't think we can put all the blame on him, though, and I will explain.
No, it's not all him, but...
So, let's get into everything because we have a lot to get into. So the top story... we could sit here and rant on New York football, but that's something for, I don't know, if we had a New York sports show or that's something for Football Forecast this week. The big story overall through the national sports landscape is this inside the NBA. So the Warner Brothers NBA lawsuit has been settled at long last.
At least to our knowledge.
To our knowledge. So to our knowledge, it looks like NBA on NBC is a go. The NBA on Amazon Prime is a go. But Turner will get some recuperations for basically their longtime partnership ending. And that is that, well, inside the NBA apparently is still going to be a thing. But how it's going to work is that Turner, the people over at Turner, are going to be producing the show, and then it will be licensed out to air on ESPN, on ABC, alongside NBA Countdown during the ESPN NBA doubleheaders on Wednesday night, during the ABC primetime broadcasts on Saturday night during the season.
It's basically the new ESPN ABC NBA pregame show. So they're basically shoving NBA Countdown
as
to
the pregame.
Well, oh god, we're turning into the NFL where we're gonna have
the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Well, no. Sometimes the NFL, if you remember on FS1, they would have a pre-show, and then they would move over to Fox to do the actual pre-show. I mean, this is a brilliant move on both parts. I think, and you don't hear me say this very often, both sides won.
I agree. I mean,
and the reason both sides won inside the NBA is still on the airwaves. They get to keep everything. They licensed it. We don't know for how much, but basically you could say that Warner Bros. Discovery hit the jackpot because they get to keep a product that's not on their airwaves, but they have full creative control over, which is, we can get into that in a few minutes on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because Charles Barkley has had some not so nice things.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about what the future of the show looks like. But I mean, on the surface, like you said, this is a rare situation where both sides won. I mean, TNT isn't going to go away empty-handed, and like we talked about with the original negotiations, they are going to get a lot of Big 12 stuff from ESPN. So they're going to air, I think it's like 12 Big 12 national college football games.
Well, that was already a deal that ESPN and Warner Bros. Discovery was already working on.
Now they're adding in, I think, 15 Big 12 basketball games, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So just in case people didn't know, ESPN and Warner Bros. Discovery, ESPN was licensing the college football games onto the TNT airwaves. So this was already a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Already. And now I think Jimmy Pitaro, who is the ESPN chairman, runs everything, is brilliant because you bring in the best pre-halftime and post-show studio show in history.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are going to say, well, what about the NFL on CBS? And what about all the... Guys, it's not close. Inside the NBA is the best studio show in the history of studio shows. And Ernie Johnson, this was a whole other issue, too. If you remember when we discussed it originally, what was going to happen with Inside the NBA, he would have left Inside the NBA if it went somewhere else.
I mean, I'm assuming, even though it's going to air on ESPN, ABC, because the Turner people are still working it, that he's going to remain.
That was the workaround. Okay. And that's why Jimmy Pitaro is brilliant, because when you license it, it remains a Warner Brothers Discovery product that is being sent over to ESPN. Now, the one thing I questioned, and I had to look it up, what happens when they're live in person?
My guess when we were discussing this pre-show was that the Turner people were going to basically be there, and it would be the Turner and ESPN people all around.
Well, so I looked this up because I needed some clarification. ESPN is actually going to have control when they're live on site.
So it's only when they're in the TNT studios and the Turner studios in Atlanta.
When they're just the pre-show and they're in the studio, TNT and WBD have control. How can WBD have control when they're live on set, live on location? They can't.
I mean, that's fair. I guess my assumption was just it's still their product, technically.
I mean, I'm sure they have some approval over the content or whatever.
I was gonna say, I'm sure they have to have at least one or two boots on the ground, if you know what I mean, at the live location.
But it makes sense because you're not going to have your competitor be on site.
Yeah,
really. Well, if they're on location,
well, probably just to at least oversee that everything is still matching up with what they're doing in the studio shows.
The one thing I will say, and I agree with what a lot of the media people are saying, keep Stephen A. Smith away from this show.
Yes, I second that. He's already on ESPN enough with First Take and the NBA Countdown show. You need to ensure that Inside the NBA remains the core that it is. Now, we have questions about that because Charles Barkley, as you have mentioned, has had some and this is even recent,
nightmare words,
not so nice things to say when it comes to ESPN. So there is still that possibility where he may consider retirement.
No, they've already agreed that the show's already going over, and WBD is paying all the contracts.
That's fair. But I guess it's just going to be a really bad look if Charles says something bad about ESPN over ESPN airwaves. But you know the mouse would not be happy about that.
Right. But at the same time, like Marchand and Jimmy Traina and a lot of the media guys came out and said, even though Charles has a lot of rope when it comes to a lot of things, he's not going to bite the hand that feeds where the show is.
I would hope not. Now the other concern, maybe a little on the easier side compared to whatever Barkley could do. Shaquille O'Neal's contract technically expires in July at the end of this NBA season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, July 1st, 2025.
So they got to come to an agreement then.
I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't think so, too. I'm just saying that's still a situation that needs to be resolved.
But he has all the leverage, to be quite honest, because he could go to Amazon. Amazon could probably pay him 2 or 3 times the money that he's making at WBD and really put a wrench in ESPN's licensing deal.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like after... That's the thing. After everything that's happened with all this negotiation and the lawsuits and everything, it would just, Shaq basically with his contract expiring involved in all of this does have a right to say, well, adios. And then all of a sudden, all these headaches were all of a sudden for nothing. So they can't afford to lose Shaq. But at the same time, as you just said, Shaq could go to Amazon and get double or triple what he's probably making right now.
I think Amazon is really the only one that would do it. I don't think NBC would overpay for Shaq.
I don't think so either, but, it's not out of the realm of possibility either.
I also think that Amazon would allow him to do multiple things. I don't know if NBC would allow him to do multiple things.
That's true, too.
But I look at the release, and so it basically says the show, which has won 21 Sports Emmy Awards, will appear on ESPN and ABC surrounding high-profile live events, including ESPN's pregame, halftime, and postgame coverage of the NBA Finals on ABC, Conference Finals, NBA playoffs, all ABC games after January 1st, Christmas Day, opening week, the final week of the season, and other market live events. So basically, they're telling you that adios, NBA Countdown, we're putting in Inside the NBA.
I guess so. It's just I hope they have ideas for what to do with all the the NBA Countdown people.
Right. And you were asking about the exact agreement. So as part of the agreement, TNT Sports will also begin showing 13 Big 12 football and 15 men's basketball games next season as part of a sub-license with ESPN. TNT will air 2 college football playoff games beginning this season, also under a sub-license with ESPN. And ESPN will continue to produce NBA Countdown and NBA Today. So there's a lot going on there. But like I said, I got to give Jimmy Pitaro credit. And this is not your ESPN of, let's see, I'm 31. You're how old now?
I just turned 30.
Okay. So this is not the ESPN of 10, 15 years ago when we were like teenagers heading into adult, where ESPN only cared about ESPN talent. You couldn't go anywhere else. There was exclusivity. You couldn't. Now, excuse me, Jimmy Pitaro really gets it with the licensee stuff. Pat McAfee's show licensed to ESPN. Look at the younger demo they're finally reaching because of making that deal. And now look what they're doing with Inside the NBA. Now, that's not a younger demo, to be honest, but a lot of younger people watch Inside the NBA. Now, The other issue that ESPN needs to figure out during its games with their halftime show or whatever they call it, a lot of times they like go to the studio for 1 to 2 minutes and then they go to 4 or 5 minutes of commercials.
Yeah.
You need to use inside the NBA if you're going to spend that type of money.
You need the skits with Barkley and all of them. You need, Charles Barkley at the start of every NBA season doing where he, who did he play for?
Yes.
You need the banter between Barkley and Shaq there.
Yeah, and you need
Ernie Johnson, everything going to hell, and Ernie Johnson trying to keep everything on the wheels.
And also you need the fishing game or whatever they do at the end. But someone made a good point. I don't remember who it was, but they're going to have to do more in-sponsor stuff and less commercial time. You need them on air for them to be what they can be. You're not going to give Charles Barkley 2 minutes and expect great TV.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, Nick, it's Inside the NBA that has produced one of our favorite gags on this show.
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
It's true. I mean, but ESPN has gotten really smart ever since the leadership change over the last couple of years. And now with Pitaro and Burt Magnus now at the top, they care more about the demo and more about working with talent, not making them exclusive. I'll give you one more that's not exclusive, which makes sense. Peyton Manning with Omaha Productions.
Yeah.
That they license the Manning cast.
And I think they've been doing more Manning casts this season than they have.
But think about it. Peyton came out and said originally when he was looking at doing media, I'm not sitting in a broadcast booth for 10 games, 11 games, 15 games. I want to do a schedule and we'll do it our way. And look what's happened. Now, it's declined a little bit because I think people are getting tired of all the celebrity nonsense and all that stuff. But ever since they added like Bill Belichick for the first quarter of games, and like they really have something there. And ESPN got smart and finally said, look, we can't own the talent anymore. We have to allow, we'll license and we can each make money together, but we have to allow them the control. Of course, McAfee has said some very controversial things. I forgot the name of the ESPN executive he went after, but
wasn't that Pitaro?
No, it was the original guy before him. But like he went after that executive hard to the point where he was calling him out on ESPN airwaves. And Norby Williamson, who actually was who got fired for some controversial stuff behind the scenes, but he was with ESPN for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it works. And usually, if you're talking about your employer that way, what usually happens to you in a normal circumstance?
You get fired?
But McAfee has so much pull between his show and College Game Day.
For better or for worse, yeah.
They're making so much money between those two things. What do you think they're pretty much going, let me just bite down on that and ignore it because we're making so much money. But
yeah,
great move. Both sides win. They each make money off this, which is a rarity in this situation. And I'm begging ESPN to not fuck it up. Like, don't put Stephen A on there. Don't force ESPN Town on there. Just let them be.
I think you and I share the exact same thoughts. All right. I need to try something a little bit here because I have something that I want to do. Obviously, I don't have a video for it. I wish I could play two sound effects simultaneously. Well, because it's time to lead to our next segment. It's time to crap on New York football. And we're going to begin...
RELAX.
There it is. Hold on. I'm not set. Why is it set? There we go. play through. And then one more time, just for good measure.
R-E-L-A.
That sounds like the end of the video, like you play, like you make everything focus.
All right. So even in the bye week, the Jets, even in the bye week, the Giants are coming out of theirs. The Jets are going into theirs, and New York football has exploded, and the Jets still managed to jet. Now, for better or for worse, I think you and I can agree, Nick, we did kind of see this next topic. Yeah, we saw this coming. When they were starting the season the way that they were, when they continued to do poor after Robert Saleh got fired, you knew this was coming. I just thought it would be at the end of the season and not now.
Yeah. I mean, his contract was going to be up one way or the other. Just let him finish out the damn season.
I thought they were just going to let it finish out.
And I see these headlines break, and I'm like, all right. So you fired the coach a month ago. Now you fire the GM. And I'm all over social media trying to understand what the hell is going on inside the organization. And
I'll tell you what's going on inside the organization, because there is one man who truly has the power and all the control right now.
R-E-L-A-X.
actually, I disagree with you.
Well, okay, there is the one, because rumor has it. I wish we didn't have copyright laws to deal with, so I could just play the
Rumor has it.
There is a rumor that they may basically tell Aaron Rodgers, thank you, but no thank you.
Well, Rich Cimini, who you and I and
I who I have met back in grad school.
I like Rich. Rich is really good at what he does. I'm trying to find the tweet the original tweet that the Jets put out 8 hours ago. I love this.
The statement.
The statement from Woody Johnson, which probably was not even written by him whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
What do we call that? The PR nonsense? Because you and I sniffed that out from a million miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Today, meaning Tuesday, the day we're recording this, I informed Joe Douglas he will no longer serve as the general manager of the New York Jets. I want to thank Joe for his commitment, that's a big word, to the Jets over the last 6 years, and wish him and his family the best moving forward. Phil Savage, who worked for the Browns, will be, that's such a great, ironic nickname, by the way, for the next GM.
I mean, he might be a savage, but you know what? He's no Macho Man Randy Savage.
Right.
Not at all.
So Phil Savage will be the interim general manager for the remainder of the season. We will begin the process to identify a new general manager immediately.
So, you know what this reminded me of? The reason I left. Do you remember a little about, we're in 2024, the end of it, so 5.5 years ago, when there was that one New York sports day where I was moping. I was sad because the Knicks had lost the lottery. We were going to lose Zion.
Yes.
And then hours later into the day, the Jets decided, no, we're going to take the spotlight and we're just going to fire Mike McDagnon after signing Le'Veon Bell, after making the draft picks. And then Adam Gase was temporarily the general manager before they officially, I think that was right before they officially appointed Joe Douglas.
Well, let's read Rich Cimini's timeline because he points out some interesting things here.
Yeah.
So 6 weeks ago, Woody Johnson said this was probably the best roster he's had in 25 years of ownership. Today, he fired the architect of the roster. Things change fast in Jets land.
Yeah.
And here's the other one that I couldn't believe. So he wrote an article on ESPN's website, and he put an update that says Douglas's fate was likely sealed when he wasn't consulted on the Saleh firing. Excuse me?
He wasn't consulted.
That's what Rich Cimini, and Rich Cimini is as connected to the Jets as anybody.
He is his joint to the hip. It's peanut butter and jelly relationship, but oh my God.
Well, wait. It also goes on to say he knew he was dead man walking. Sources says it would be a shock if Woody brings back Rodgers.
And that's the other part here is that. So it looks like, Nick, it's very well possible, and we'll talk about the Giants in a sec. The Giants and the Jets could be in very similar, if not the same situation, where both of them are going to scrap the GM, the coach, and the quarterback and start fresh.
Well, we'll get to the Giants because
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on that. But here is the Jets in a nutshell.
And all the failure.
Like, quite literally.
The Rodgers move is a failure. So, Nick Morgasen, sometimes I hate saying you're right, but with your typical how you are as a Jets fan, and I mean fan, but you were right. The Rodgers move was an absolute dud.
Do you remember when the move was made and I said I'm not looking forward to this move whatsoever?
Yeah, you were right.
And I said because it's going to be all ego. He's an older quarterback. He's coming off injuries also, which was another main concern. The Packers organization, that team was built.
They're laughing their way to the bank now.
Well,
Thank
yes.
you for the second round pick.
Right. But I was going to say the Packers were built for Aaron Rodgers. The Jets were not.
I would just say the Packers were built very well anyway, because look, Brett Favre goes off to do his one season with the Jets and two with the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers comes in. Packers have success. Aaron Rodgers wins a Super Bowl. And now that Aaron Rodgers is gone, and Jordan Love, just like Aaron Rodgers, had to wait a number of years, and look at where the Packers are right now with him.
I wouldn't say everything with Jordan Love has
Correct.
been perfect.
I know it's early, but I'm saying the similarities are there.
Yes. Oh yeah, 100%.
It's smart on the Packers as an organization. They know when to move on.
You know what's crazy? Also, like I was reading tweets, and I'm trying to find it also, and I can't find it. The amount of guys that were drafted by Joe Douglas, and now he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was the big guys. It was Wilson. It was Breece Hall, Sauce, who, by the way, has been an effing disaster if I ever saw one this year.
But then here's my question. Does that mean, now, contracts aside, does that mean Woody and whoever the new GM is going to be, the mission is going to be to try and remove all the Douglas guys and start fresh?
You're really going to get rid of Wilson?
No, but I look, I'm not saying that's what I want to see.
You're talking about like the headaches.
Is this? I'm not saying that's what I want to see happen. Now, granted, I'm a fan of the other New York team, but at the same time, I'm saying, would it not be typical Jets if whoever was the new GM, he and Woody decided, okay, this was such the Aaron Rodgers tenure was such a failure that, you know what, anything Joe Douglas or Aaron Rodgers related, we're going to try to put the kibosh on.
Well, and here's a more descriptive thing. Samini was on this like big time. Like he must have had blackmail on somebody because he really like knew it all. So from Joe Douglas's perspective, consider some recent events that left him feeling like his power has been usurped. There's your SAT word for the day.
Yep. I've used that word plenty of times.
Me too. So it says 1, he wasn't consulted by Woody Johnson, which we said on the solid firing. 2, Johnson stepped in on the Reddick negotiations.
Uh-oh.
And then number 3, and this came out today, Douglas's right-hand man, Rex Hogan, was fired a year ago, a position that was never replaced.
Never? Oh, no.
This is typical Jets. Like,
obviously everything under the Rodgers tenure has been not good, but still pull the rug right from out under your GM.
Right. And how do you expect someone to do a good job for you if you're just going to undermine them the rest of the way? That's the big problem I have here. And by the way, it kind of reminds me of somebody else.
How about them Cowboys?
Because look what Jerry's doing in Dallas.
Oh, I'm all in. Screw everybody else. We're gonna win this. We're gonna win every game for the rest of this season. We're still gonna win this. We're gonna make the playoff. We're gonna go to Super Bowl. How about them Cowboys?
That's what Woody Johnson is like. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Ambassador Johnson. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get zapped. I'm gonna get zapped like lightning if I don't call him Ambassador Johnson.
Well, his buddy is now going back into political office in the White House,
Which means you won't even see Woody Johnson caring about his organization even more.
Yep. Well, I mean, if we're gonna talk about owners, do you have any last thoughts? Because I feel like this is a good transition point over to the other neck of the New York football woods.
Let's see. Cut Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers should retire, never play football again.
Maybe Trump will give him a role in the administration.
He could be the head of a drug enforcement. Oh, sorry, he takes ayahuasca. No, but I'm serious though, Aaron.
Have him. Oh no, this is screwed up. But have him be with Robert Kennedy Jr. on the health end.
Oh no, but Aaron, listen to me right here. I'm looking in this camera right here.
Do you want a close up?
No. Listen, Aaron, retire. It's done.
You say RELAX. We say RETIRE.
Yes, retire. It's over. Your career is over. You'll still be a Hall of Famer. You won a Super Bowl. We can't take that away from you at all, even though we should. Because, as they say, it's like my Kevin Durant argument. He hasn't won anything without Steph Curry. But the whole experiment bringing Devontae Adams over to here also has been a massive failure.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're going to pick it up like clockwork when he comes over here. I mean, the man had 9 yards in the first quarter of the game against the Colts. 9 yards! You made a comeback, and then you lost to the Colts at home!
It's over, man. It's way over.
Go out and get a quarterback that matters.
Oh, no, don't worry. Because you know what's going to happen? The way everything's going, I talk about the similarities with the Packers and Favre and Rodgers. Oh, you know what's going to kill me?
What?
If Aaron Rodgers ends up in a Vikings uniform next season.
Oh, God.
JJ McCarthy goes down and the Vikings bring Aaron Rodgers in.
You know how effed up the Jets organization is going to be? They're going to go out and get Shedeur Sanders.
All right. But I guess that's a perfect transition. Because I think now the Jets and Giants are going to be in the similar circumstance. What you were talking about the Giants moving on from Danny. Now, if the Rodgers era is over, the Jets are going to be in the same boat about this next quarterback class, which supposedly is not great.
I mean, and there's not really much to trade for either.
Right. So let's talk about the other side of things, and that is Daniel Jones has officially been benched. He has been moved to the QB3 position. Hey, speaking of a certain song that I was just playing. Well, do you remember when Russell Wilson was benched in Denver and they said, oh no, it's a football move, it's not a financial move, and we basically, as the kids say these days, called cap.
Wow, I haven't heard that one in forever.
Well, Nick, do you want to write? I wrote down a few predictions for myself before
we
the
talked
NFL
about
season.
This. Yeah.
Do you want to? Can I read my
Yes.
fiery? I said my number one prediction.
This was, by the way, just for context, this is for our other show, Football Forecast, where our pick show.
Yeah, so I wrote down a few hot takes that I had, and obviously this is an Excel file, but in our little chats and such, I copied it over to an Excel file.
This was good.
I said, this is from August. Giants country, let's ride. With a lack of success from Daniel Jones and another miss of playoffs in sight, granted, I didn't think we were going to be the last place team in the NFL right now, the Giants elect to sit Daniel Jones come end of November, start of December. And we're in November 20th now for the remainder of the season, eliminating the risk of a late season Jones injury, making it easy to cut him in the offseason. And speaking of cut, the man, the myth, the other Don himself, Tommy Cutlets, is now back in as the quarterback for the New York Giants.
I mean, yeah, well, they just let's be real here, and the whole world knows this. It's that stupid injury guarantee in his contract is the reason why he's sitting.
Right. But listen, because I know people are like, oh, but Tommy DeVito actually did decent last year, that they're going to win a couple of games. I know some of you on the football forecast pool think that the Giants could actually beat the Cowboys the way the Cowboys have been playing.
I said maybe.
I know, but hear me out. Yeah, is that a risk? Yes, but do you want to know what's a bigger risk?
The injury concern.
Continuing to play Danny Jones. He gets hurt in the last game of the season, and then you have a high draft pick, a top 3 pick where you can take a quarterback, but then you also have a $32 million bench quarterback.
That's true.
So look, for as much as you're going to ruin the number one, like we just said, the quarterback draft class for 2025 is not great.
It's dog shit.
So honestly, you can talk about Shedeur Sanders and everybody, but maybe this is a little controversial of a take. Maybe we'll discuss on Football Forecast this week. I am fine if the Giants, whether it be Dable and Shane in charge or somebody else, I'm fine with a veteran holdover for a year or two. Honestly. If Drew Lock is our quarterback for 2025, because we're not going to be successful in 2025. This is going to be...
this is going to take 2 to 3 years at least.
This is another reset.
Which is bad. And by the way, if they really want to go reset, fire Dable and fire Shane.
Well, here's the catch-22. And this goes back to what I said last month. Then you're on to your 4th or 5th head coach and 3rd general manager within the span of a decade. How many times in a decade can you continue to hit reset? Which basically, because you're talking about ownership, did Daniel Jones's play suck? Yes. But
6 years.
Right. No, but I'm saying with this season specifically, what is the term? Yes, but. It's like, yes, but how the hell did we not have a backup kicker in week 2 when Graham went down?
That's a coaching issue.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. There's a coaching issue. Now, somebody proposed a question to me because Dable's coaching has not been the greatest this season. We talk about how
fundamentally it has not been good.
But somebody proposed a question to me. Is it that way because they have lost faith in Daniel Jones and he is such a limited skill set?
Well, if that's the case, then they should have benched him a long time ago.
But also remember what I said. Daniel Jones, the reason he got the payday and everything and such was because of the successful 22 season. But he was never a Dable and Shane guy. Daniel Jones was from the Gettleman era.
And that's the problem. When you go from usually when you go full sail and you replace the head coach and the GM, it's new day, new mindset.
Right. So, you definitely have a right to say after this season, fire those two. But at the same time, you have to also, I feel like, give them a chance. I could see where you say, hey, give them a chance with their quarterback.
The problem is,
but again,
they're doubling down, though, if they do.
But again, to your credit, what you said, the 25 draft class sucks.
It's really bad.
And if you bring in, and this goes for both the Jets and the Giants, if you bring in Shedeur Sanders, then you know who else you're bringing in?
Well, they don't have to allow him in.
No, but what I'm saying is, obviously he has his coaching position in Colorado, but you don't think Deion Sanders' influence will be felt? And if the Giants or the Jets have a bad season, that Deion's voice is not going to be very vocal?
Unfortunately,
in New, I'm just saying, the reason I'm saying for our two teams in the New York media market,
I just don't think that's going to fly where someone is involved with their son in New York. It's probably the worst place you could be for that scenario to happen.
So here's my point. If we're going to Danny is done and we're going to maybe our 4th head coach, whatever it is, 3rd GM in a decade, then you know where the problem lies? It lies on John Mara.
Of course it does. The whole ownership is a fuck up.
I will never forget with the whole thing with trying to bench Eli and the first time around. Nick, do you remember the infamous quote, "We can win and rebuild at the same time"?
Yes, that was the worst quote in the history of quotes I ever heard.
It's time to stop. If you're going to commit to a rebuild, if you're getting rid of Jones and Dable and Shane, guess what? Commit to the rebuild. We've suffered long enough that honestly, if we have to suffer 2 more years, fine. If it means a stable, consistent team that's not making the playoffs every 6 years, and then sucking everywhere, fine. Commit to it.
I think the problem is, and this is with all professional sports, when rebuild is the word you hear in New York, what goes through a fan's mind in New York? Not good things.
But you know what? There's been not good things on the Giants and Jets the Giants and the Jets are the laughing stock of New York sports at this point.
Agreed. But remember when the Yankees kind of went through a temporary rebuild and fans like almost hit the ceiling?
But that is the Yankees. I know what you're saying because obviously the Jets have had a long history, haven't won since the 60s.
It's been 10 years since they made the playoffs.
The Giants have 4 Super Bowls, yes. But I think comparing the Yankees to the Giants and the Jets, I think that's a different argument. Different sport, different circumstances, different levels of success.
I'm talking more about just the New York perspective where fans jump off a cliff if their team is rebuilding even for one season.
What would you like if the Giants and Jets only had to rebuild for 2 more seasons before they became playoff teams, or we continue on this vicious cycle?
No, I'd take the rebuild in a heartbeat.
Yes, I would too.
But I think the problem is the Jets not making the playoffs in 10 plus years. The Giants
and the Aaron Rodgers era was supposed to change that, and it didn't.
Because at least in your time, you've seen 2 Super Bowls.
Yes, that's fair. But I want to go back to Nick. Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold both have better winning percentages as a Jets quarterback than Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, that's not even the stat I was going to go to. The 2 of them have better QBRs than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is unbelievable to me in that regard. Okay? That the QBRs are better for the guys that we threw out of town.
Do you remember how, the Jets actually performed so well last season, and they said, they came close to a winning record, and the argument, the whole wide agreement was if the Jets actually had an actual quarterback, they would have been a playoff team. And the irony, they go and get Aaron Rodgers, who is a legendary quarterback, and guess what happens? They actually play worse. Well, I shouldn't say they got Aaron. He was there last season, and then 4 plays later, he wasn't there.
To be honest, I think his career was over after the injury. That's my opinion of it. I know people are going to say you probably jumped the gun.
Maybe he hasn't been the same. You're right. He has not been the same since the injury.
And now you're stuck with all this dead cap money to boot on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to say, no, you have to keep him so you don't have debt. It's over. The NFL teams pay off guys all the time.
Yeah. Now, as far as this, and going back to the argument of, if you're starting Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock, you could risk, ruining the game. Look, if the Giants are so desperate for a quarterback, whether it be Shane or whoever new GM is, they'll make a trade.
Of course. I mean, to be honest, if they could find and this is going to sound silly because we make fun of him all the time, but if the Giants could find their own version of a Russell Wilson type quarterback.
Well, funny you say that. So I know we're running way over and stuff, but for the sake of the Giants and the Jets, and we talk about veteran holdovers, let's take a look at the upcoming quarterback free agents. Because there's no big stars, but
you're going to say there's names, right?
There are names, serviceable names. All right. I'm just going now. This isn't a list of like who's most worthy or who anything is. So forgive me if I go down a lot of names here before we come across somebody. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold.
Well, that's going to be off the table for the Jets anyway. But
right. Yeah. Zach Wilson. Trey Lance. You scoffed at Zach Wilson. Trey Lance. My God.
They put him in for one play and then took him out.
Yep. Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he has had to do a couple of emergency fill-in roles on such really bad circumstances, like you think of Andrew Luck's retire.
His injury concerns are a problem, though.
His injury concerns are a problem. He's going to be 32, but like I said, if it's a one season for the Giants or Jets for a one season holdover, I think that's okay. Taylor Heinicke.
He hasn't really played very much.
Yeah. Marcus Mariota.
He's a Wildcat quarterback now.
Yeah. I don't know if the Giants are set up for a Wildcat. I don't know if the Jets are. There's Drew Lock, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I think the Giants might be if they were down to their last resort, I think they'd give Drew Lock another year.
Here's the thing. The Giants better not start this PR bullshit wagon where they say, oh, Tommy DeVito could be our possible starter for the next 3 to 4 years. I don't want to hear that.
He's a decent, and actually, funny you say that, at the bottom of the list, Tommy DeVito. His contract's up at the end of this season too.
The only reason you keep him, one, because he's not going to cost millions of dollars.
Right.
And I guess he can go around town and start charging $20,000 an appearance again.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned Russell Wilson, and according to this, he and Justin Fields are both up for contract. I don't see, though, the way the Steelers have been playing, they're going to give both of them contracts, I would imagine.
I think Fields might go hit the market, though, before he comes back.
If that happens, though, I think that's a name the Giants and Jets have to consider.
I think he fits I was going to say Giants originally, but I think he actually fits the Jets better because they have a more symbiotic run game than the Giants do.
If you want to go on the older side for a one-year deal, you can give one to 37-year-old Andy Dalton.
No.
Or 40-year-old Joe Flacco.
The Jets have already been down that road, so I don't think they're
Giants could. Oh, here's an interesting one, given everything that's happening in the circumstances with the team that he is with now. Famous Jameis is going to be a free agent.
He actually hasn't looked too bad except for the amount of picks.
I know, but picks was always a problem for him. But again, for the Giants and Jets, 1 year holdover, I don't think that's a bad option.
I think he fits better with the Giants than the Jets.
I could see that, yeah.
Because, again, Giants are set up for more airplay than the Jets.
Mm-hmm. Especially, you want somebody who can throw it deep to Malik Neighbors.
As long as he doesn't get concussions.
Yeah. Some of the other names on this list, though, Mac Jones, no. Carson Wentz, I mean, he's going to be 32. He hasn't been a starter for a while.
I would stay away.
Yeah. Case Keenum, no. Mason Rudolph, no.
I like the way Mason has been playing this year. But
Easton Stick.
Oh, God.
Cooper Rush.
It's getting worse. Stop.
Josh Dobbs.
It's getting worse.
I'll throw one more name out there. And he's obviously not quarterbacking this team now, but when he was quarterback, he was having success. Granted, they're still having success under Brock Purdy. Jimmy Garoppolo.
I didn't even know he was still around.
According to this, he is.
I don't think he's going to get touched either.
Neither do I. But I'm just saying those are the options at this point. If the Giants or Jets are going to do a veteran holdover, those are some of your options.
All I'm going to say is MetLife Stadium is going to be depressing for 2 to 3 years.
All I'm going to say is the Knicks, the Rangers, and the Yankees and the Mets better continue to do well because New York football is going to be...
Hey, NYCFC, help.
New York Red Bulls, help.
Yeah.
Well, they're playing in the Eastern Conference semifinals in the MLS, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
That's soon, I think.
Oh, man.
All right. Let's go back to the NBA. We have some quick headlines. I know we're running pretty short on time. The Cleveland Cavaliers have become the 6th team in NBA history to start the season 15-0. Obviously, the last time that happened, you have to go back to the 15-16 Warriors, who had the 73-win season.
And started 24-0.
Yep. So I don't think anybody expected the Cavs were going to have this run to start the year.
Well, they have a really good young nucleus now. They were, I forgot what seed they were last year in the playoffs. They were high. I think they had the Magic in the first round. I think they were the four. What is it? Which one is the in between game? Is it the 4-5?
Yeah, the 4-5.
So they won that series, and then I think they got blown out by the Celtics, if I'm not mistaken.
If I'm not mistaken, you're right.
And they're a good team. Donovan Mitchell's a good player. Garland's a good player.
They had the 4 seed and faced the Magic.
Right. And Jared Allen, who I'm still pissed off to this day because he was a net and they traded him in that ridiculously large trade, which did absolutely nothing. They're a good team. They're a really good team. I think people underestimate how good this team actually is. Donovan Mitchell has come into his own as a leader in Cleveland, which nobody expected. Everyone thought he was automatically going to be in a Knicks uniform, and that was it. And now I'm wondering if that would have been a mistake.
Hey, Spidey, don't you wish you remember the Knicks?
No, but I'm actually wondering if that would have been a mistake.
I agree. I like, granted, it's been a up and down start, but I like what the Knicks team has right now with Cat. I like how the Knicks team has developed over the last several years.
I was curious to see how that was going to work out, and more rebounds, more points, really securing the offensive glass.
I know it's been ups and downs, but honestly, the Eastern Conference as a whole has not been good.
Well, I'm looking at the standings, and the reason I bring up the standings is because we're going to talk about another team in a little bit. But Cleveland is obviously number one.
Boston.
They're beating a Celtics team, which obviously is on fire themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they're 12-3. The Magic are 9-6 in the 3 seed. The Knicks are 4th, 8-6. The Hawks are, and then it's under 500 after the.
That's what I mean. Like
it's that bad.
It's that bad. The Eastern Conference, and all the way at the bottom, if you want to make that transition, at 2-11.
Well, you have 2 teams at 2-11, and this is how embarrassing it is.
The first one is the one that we're not going to talk about.
The Wizards.
But that's surprise, surprise. And then the second one.
Yeah, the Philadelphia 76ers. And as I was trying to rejuggle the format of this show today, Shams Charania, who's been on it like crazy ever since he's made his way over to ESPN, breaks a story, and I want to pull that up while we're talking. And
so apparently, Tyrese. So we've talked about the concerns with the big 3 there, with Joel basically saying, I'm not going to play back-to-back nights ever. Paul George, obviously he hurt his knee during the preseason. Maxey had his own hamstring injury recently.
And he got hurt again this year.
And so, and now on top of that,
yeah, World War V. So as of this recording, they are 2-11. They are tied for the last spot in the Eastern Conference. And we find out from Shams that Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are basically going to butt heads in the locker room. And so here's what exactly happened. So after they lost, I'm trying to find it. They lost to the Miami Heat by a lot, 106-89.
Mm-hmm.
The loss was the team's 4th in a row, sparking veteran guard Kyle Lowry to call for the meeting. Much needed heart-to-heart and call to action and urgency. Players and coaches held each other accountable and took fault in the start of the season. Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time to team activities.
Basically saying Embiid is not being a team player.
Calling out the 22-23 league MVP about being late for, quote, everything. So,
do you think the Sixers are regretting that extension they gave him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a dumpster fire.
And I don't want to be disrespectful to Kyle Lowry, because Kyle Lowry is an excellent veteran of the NBA. But when he has to be the voice of reason and he's not involved in the big 3 picture, you screwed up somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, The 76ers are
emotional damage.
So, I mean, I look at the situation and I just say, it's done. It's done. It's already done. They're 2-11. Like, you don't recover from 2-11.
I mean, you can ask the Pistons there about their long losing skid last year about trying to recover.
Well, they were historically bad. Like, just
But the Sixers were supposed to be good.
and by the way, to all the idiots that I put the clip up on because I thought it was funny, but people apparently are Paul George defenders, by the way, which I didn't understand because everyone was so mad that I went after his little podcast because I said it was a distraction. Well, look at all the distractions going on within the organization now.
And yet, in their defense, in the fans' defense, Paul George is not the worst problem of all of this.
Yeah, but he's been hurt too.
With on the court stuff, it's one thing. The problem is Joel Embiid. Look at this. His play is going to suffer. It's problems in the locker room. And to me, what's going on, and Tyrese Maxey is showing, it seems like he does not give any damn.
Well, okay, so here's another one. Embiid accepted the message sent in the meeting, sources said, but he stated that he is sometimes confused about what the 76ers are attempting to execute on the court. Whose fault is that?
Aren't you supposed to be the leader of this team, Joel?
Here's the deal. Joel cannot be a leader.
No.
He can't be a leader. I don't know if this is an insult to Joel Embiid, but he reminds me of James Harden.
And I get what you mean because it's kind of sad because Joel Embiid, like you mentioned, just a couple of seasons ago was an MVP. And you think, given that and given what the Sixers, what they accomplished and what they could have been, we were talking about that it could have been, I think, Nick, what you, I, and Ben were talking about was like at the top of the Eastern Conference, you were probably going to have Boston, you were probably going to have the Knicks, you were probably going to have Indiana, perhaps that you could have had the Cavs or Magic mixed in there, and then you were going to have the 76ers with their big three.
Everyone said that the 76ers, they had it all figured out. They just needed another piece, another star to go with Embiid.
And they got it, and yet everything
they picked the wrong one.
I'll throw this question out there because obviously PG-13 had the concerns about performance or about injury and such, and yet I don't know if not having him would have made this team much better because if Embiid is the way that he is right now, I don't think much changes. That's the problem.
Well, I think the whole attitude of the locker room changed when he basically came out and said, well, guys, guess what? I'm not playing every day.
Right. You're letting your fans down. You're letting your teammates down. You're letting the organization down.
You're also telling the fans, hey, don't buy tickets every day because I don't anticipate me playing.
You pissed off the league. You pissed off your general manager and your front office that gave you an extension.
And I like Daryl Morey, by the way, because he's got moxie.
Well, you mentioned James Harden. He's not a fan of Daryl Morey.
He's a liar.
Well, in this case, he's not a liar, but I like Daryl Morey because he'll call out shit when he sees it. And at this point, Joel Embiid is shit. You can quote that one and clip it in every place. I know I'm going to get shit for saying it, but Joel Embiid. And I'm going to say it again, and you disagree with me. Joel Embiid does not act like a star at all.
He's not right now.
He doesn't
I'm not going to disagree. He's not right now.
He doesn't act like a star. He doesn't play like a star. He doesn't take responsibility of a star. He's kind of, and this is going to sound weird too, he's tumbling down the Kevin Durant path.
I don't know what I can say as to that, but what I can say is the 76 organization. I have a couple of sound effect choices I could go, but I'll go with this one.
You and I were thinking the same thing. But you know what I also have to say to Joel Embiid?
You need to shut the fuck up.
We haven't used that one in a while.
I was waiting for that because Joel Embiid does so much of this. What movie is that? This is what you're doing. This is what I want you to do. Like, shut up. No one cares what you have to say. If you were winning and you were playing and you were trying hard and it was because the rest of the team was not competing to your level, you would have an argument.
Or you were hurt.
No, but I'm saying if he was out there playing hard and like just the rest of the team was not playing to his level, and he was.
But what I'm saying, because you're talking about PG-13, we talk about Embiid getting hurt less. Injuries are one thing. A lack of leadership and a lack of chemistry in the locker room is a completely other thing.
You put two stars in charge that have no leadership ability whatsoever. Paul George does not have leadership ability.
But at the same time, I think as the guy who has been here his whole career since the beginning, I think if there's one person you're supposed to look at as leader,
it should be Joel Embiid, but it's not.
Right.
Tyrese Maxey, who is up and coming in this
Tyrese
league.
Maxey and Kyle Lowry are looking more like the leaders of the locker room than Embiid is, which is a problem.
And Tyrese Maxey was out for a few weeks with a really unlucky injury that happened. And I think he's coming back like either this week or next week.
But what I'm saying is, I mean, look, it's typical for, somebody who's a rising star to gain a little respect the more that he's around. Or it's typical for, and we know as Yankees, a veteran, like in this case, a Kyle Lowry to come in and be the veteran presence in the locker room.
Rizzo.
Right. But when you have those two guys, being more of leaders than the guy who's supposed to be the leader, that's not a good look.
I mean, this might be a little early because he's a younger player, but like I see leadership qualities in like a Volpe in the next couple of years, like because he takes in the spotlight and wants to play hard.
Yeah.
Like I don't see that in Embiid. Like Embiid's acting like the veteran who's won like 2-3 titles already.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was going to say on the Yankee end for Volpe, I mean, he's modeled himself after Jeter, and he got very recently the Jeter stamp of approval. So like, it's frustrating because I actually liked Joel Embiid when he came up and into the league. He would have like 40, 45, 50-point games. I think it was like early. Yeah, no, it was earlier this year. We had one topic because I was looking through all our historical clips that he dropped a 70 burger.
Yeah. Like, he is a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
I still disagree that he shouldn't have won the MVP over Jokic, where Jokic would have won 4 out of 4.
Well, Embiid ain't going to win any MVPs anytime soon if he's not going to play back-to-back games.
Well, because of the game limit, but
right.
Which I will still stick my flag into that I think is stupid. But my point is, the Sixers need to think about, can this guy lead? And the problem is they did it too late because now they're seeing, because Joel Embiid can now say, I got my contract.
Yeah, good luck trying to get out of that contract.
And no one's going to trade for him. Well, let me take that back. Because he's a star, how many times did people trade for James Harden?
Yeah.
So never say never.
Never say never. All right. We still got one more big topic to talk about, and then we have a smaller one afterward. It's weird to say the smaller one is the smaller one, but Netflix, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. Obviously, we talked about this, Zan and I, on MMA Outsiders yesterday.
I watched the whole main fight and the other fight, which was gory, but
Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano.
It was a good fight, though.
Yes. The one before that, Barrios versus Ramos, was also an
Zan was telling me like that. Apparently, it got a lot of attention, that fight.
Deservedly so. It was an excellent close fight. Ended in a draw. A little controversy there. The Taylor Serrano fight, unfortunately, ending in controversy. I thought the judges mucked that one up. Then Jake Paul, Mike Tyson happened, and for anybody out there in the world that I live in my life, that said, oh, Mike Tyson's going to knock Jake Paul out. I told you it was a sham. I told you from the beginning I had these concerns, and it was just a typical Jake Paul circus. I hate, I give you credit that you were right about the Aaron Rodgers circus. I'm going to take my victory lap. I called it. I knew this was going to happen.
You're right. but I think we both said that this was a sham, like right off the top. Like, and by the way, did you want to tell everybody what I got frustrated the most about in this situation?
Which, oh yeah, basically that Mike Tyson got paid $20 million, and
Well,
then Jake Paul is walking away with $40 million from all this.
well, okay, that's one issue, but I'm talking about the money issue of because the fight was not fully sanctioned. New York could not bet on the damn fight. I'm telling you right now, for the first time in my life, that would have been the biggest bet I ever placed.
Well, when we were talking about sanctioning, I mean, how the hell did the Texas Athletic Commission? I didn't understand it then. I don't understand it now. How this was not an exhibition, that this is actually a professional fight, because this was an exhibition if I've ever seen one. Where Jake Paul is admitting after the fact, he saw Tyson was on wobbly legs and he wanted to carry him basically throughout in order to ensure they got the final bell. You mentioned that maybe they wanted a split decision, a close decision, so that way, they could try a rematch. It's I don't want to see 58-year-old Mike Tyson. I don't care if it's another exhibition with a Roy Jones Jr. or an Evander Holyfield, an actual fight with a Jake Paul. I don't want to see Mike Tyson. I love Mike Tyson. He's the first boxer I got to know. I have his PlayStation 1 game that's got a lot of bad reviews.
Well, also the most famous game he ever put out, the Punch Out.
Punch Out, right? I've played Punch Out. I love Punch Out. I don't want to see him box.
Nobody wants to see him fight. And the point you were making before, where I said, and by the way, I don't know how him admitting did not get him in trouble with the gambling commission, because remember, you can't reveal anything now because 99.9% of events are gambled on.
Yeah.
So for him to admit that he basically was not going to knock out Mike Tyson because he didn't want to hurt him, my opinion here, anyone who bet, oh God, what was the phrase that Zan said to me? Inside the
distance.
Yeah, thank you. Inside the distance. Everyone should get their money back.
Because people were expecting that one of two things are going to happen. That Paul would take. I mean, to Zan's credit, he laughed. He said, "You could knock out a 58-year-old Mike Tyson."
Well, he said to me before we taped the Bando's breakdowns that he was mad because he actually put a prop for Inside the Distance.
Yeah,
and that looks bad, but it's not his fault. Like,
right.
And then Jake admits afterwards, like a dumbass, that he was not going to hit him.
I mean, Mike Tyson didn't do any hitting. It 17, 18 punches the whole fight,
something like that. Yeah, I mean,
it was bad.
But anyone who bet should get their money back on the rounds.
But then, and this is the reason I was very harsh when we were giving it the grade, and I said D. Then came the streaming issues. So, I will tell my side as to what has happened.
I lucked out, apparently.
You didn't have any issues at all?
Just a few spins, but it was like 2 or 3 times.
Okay. We tested the Netflix that we have over here a couple of hours before, and we watched the movie and everything was fine. But when we went to put up the Tyson Paul,
the actual stream.
Yeah. When the event began, and I'm talking about with like the main card at 8:00. We had what was it? Upgrade the account, household account or something. It was like, why couldn't you have asked us to do this 2 hours earlier?
You mean like just an actual update to the account?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all it turned out to be. But it's like, why now and not 2 hours earlier? But anyway, first fight fine. Barrios Ramos fine. I got to Taylor Serrano, and that's when the issues started to happen.
They said that was right around where a lot of issues were happening.
And then I missed round 2 of Paul Tyson. I missed most of round 3 of Paul Tyson.
I saw your tweet where you were annoyed.
Yeah. And then I missed part of round 5 of Paul Tyson.
It was never that bad for me.
And Zan said it was the other way. The last 2 fights were fine for him, but the first 2 fights, he had some issues.
So I turned it on at the beginning of the women's main fight.
Yeah.
And I literally streamed it. Like, I logged into Netflix on my computer. So I didn't use TV, anything. And mine was pretty good. Like, it didn't, even when it like froze, the sound for some reason was even still working. Like, so I didn't really
That's so
lose.
weird.
So I was like, all right, this isn't too bad. And my gripe is not 100% with the streaming issues.
Okay.
My gripe is all the bullshit celebrities that they put into the. I don't know what to call this. A show, sham.
Well, this is typical Jake Paul. You knew when Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, all the build that they had, you knew the celebrities were going to come out of the woodwork.
Can we talk about the issues between the earpieces and the microphones? You had Jerry Jones kissing Netflix's ass and you couldn't even hear it.
You had basically Evander Holyfield was unable to hear. Now that's not an ear joke, but then later on in the same video, is Mike Tyson going to bite Jake Paul's ear?
I see what you did there. That was bad though. Like, they just were not prepared for this at all.
And here's the thing. I guess that's a perfect transition to Zan and I's little thing on Twitter. Okay, because Zan basically was crapping on it and said, you guys had months for this. The production issues, you mentioned the streaming issues.
The amount of money they spent production-wise.
Right. And when he says months to prepare for this, remember, this was supposed to take place in July, and then Tyson's ulcer flare up, which, by the way...
the blood issues. Yeah.
By the way, what he tweeted afterwards is a statement, like, credit to him, but that's not a good look if you're the Texas Commission. All that, and you
Wait, which part?
Oh, that he lost all that blood and all that weight
Yes.
and nearly died. Like, yeah, that's a good look for the Texas Commission. You approved this fight still as a professional bout.
Yeah, I mean, the health issues he had... I mean, he could have died.
Right. And here's the thing. I get what Zan was saying, but at the same time, I'm like, this is their first test of the sports entertainment thing. So it's like, obviously it wasn't going to be perfect. Having said that, that was the other part of my thread, which is I had to interrupt him. I'm like, stop, I'm trying to give you credit, Zan. It actually relates to this next banner.
This is a problem.
You have paid. And this is why I think people are harsh on them for a good reason. You have put $75 million or something like that per game for the NFL to host their 2 Christmas games this year, host games to be determined in 25 and 26. You're about to start a 10-year, $5 billion relationship with the WWE, where here in the U.S., you're going to stream Monday Night Raw, and then internationally, you're getting everything. And then I wouldn't be surprised, which includes the WWE network. And I wouldn't be surprised here in the US if the Peacock deal ends after 26, everything goes over to Netflix for that too. You're getting such a library. If you had the issues you had with Paul Tyson, when there was just so many people, even non-boxing fans were watching, imagine diehard rowdy NFL fans on Christmas, especially considering the teams that are involved. Oh, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, I'm sure those people are going to be very professional and very courteous to you on Christmas if you have the issues that you have now. And then imagine the WWE Raw. They're supposedly their first Raw on Netflix January 6th, and they're gonna go all out. John Cena, legends, and stuff.
Imagine they screw that up.
Imagine you want to deal with a rowdy fan base who will kill you if you have production and you screw it up. And supposedly, according to a couple of wrestling sources, WWE did reach out and said, we're a little concerned by what happened here. They said, rest assured, in a little less than 2 months' time, we will be okay.
I mean, and we're supposed to believe that?
And here's the thing. I'm being very honest. If they screw up the 2 NFL games, I could see Goodell and company saying, yeah, that money we paid you. I mean, you paid us for 25 and 26. Here, have it back. Because we're going to put the 25 and 26 games, you're not going to do them anymore. We don't trust you with it.
I mean, it was brutal. Like, I saw some of the videos people posted of some of the issues. going on. Again, not my biggest gripe. I could really care less about all these celebrity Emmy Award, Grammy Award. Who you told me was on the Rosie Perez?
Rosie Perez.
Like what? Like what the hell is that? And she wouldn't stop talking.
She's a big boxing fan. She was a color commentator.
I know, but I'm trying to watch the fight. The whole fight. Like, shut up. I like
Mauro Ranallo.
I do. Like I've seen him quite a few times. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But like she was even talking over him.
And it's hard to talk over Mauro Ranallo, and nobody should.
And the whole Cedric the Entertainer thing was so like out of left field.
Again, but you knew when Paul was involved and Tyson was involved. And like I said, non-boxing fans were watching this card. You knew everyone was going to come out of the woodwork.
There's one person that made sense out of this whole thing. Ariel. That's it.
Right.
And he always seems to be in the drama after the fight ends. And what was it? When the two of them are standing there, and then Ariel asked Mike, like, do you plan on fighting it? And of course he says, no, I'm not done yet. And then of course he's like, Logan, I'm taking you on. And then he leans, and then Logan's like, Mike, I'll beat the shit out of you.
And then, that feels more freaking WWE-ish, which then Bully Ray goes and posts, that he at WrestleMania, the idea of the Paul brothers fighting and Mike Tyson's in Jake's corner as Jake's manager.
That was the dumbest thing I ever read, by the way. And Bully Ray is actually really knowledgeable and knows what he's doing.
But I could see WWE doing it because WrestleMania, because celebrities. Logan Paul is technically a WWE superstar.
And Jake Paul is a stupid influencer. What's the difference?
I'm just waiting for the day Conor McGregor arrives to WrestleMania.
Well, okay. Well, now I'm going to say the thing that made you roll your eyes when I said it to you during the prep. Do you ever see the day that Jake Paul and Conor McGregor becomes a thing?
I want to see Nick. I don't know if Conor McGregor's ever going to fight ever again.
Well, supposedly sometime in 2025, maybe.
You suck.
Stay off the weed.
You have to admit it will be the biggest fight ever if it happens.
And by the way, well, that's going to be if Conor McGregor actually gets his crap straight, deals with whatever's going on with Ireland with that court case, and isn't the man who
Was on crack.
By the way, I have to call Chandler out for one thing, by the way.
Freaking still calling for the fight afterward. Oh.
Yes. Like, dude, like, we get it. We know you want to fight him. Like, you don't have to play all bad guy.
Fight Max Holloway, please. You would actually... Chandler Holloway is a better fight than
I think he said, though, he's like, I could fight.
Yes.
The way he said it was the problem. He's like, I could fight Max Holloway.
But I want the money fight.
He's like, I want Conor. I'm like, oh, God.
It's like a child throwing a temper tantrum. No disrespect to Mike. I love Mike.
Right. But, and Zan said to me in a private chat, like, after that moment happened, he's like, oh, God, we're going to have to talk about this again? I'm like, probably.
It's never going to... This is the song that never... This is the fight that never ends.
You know what? It makes me think of this is a horrible comparison, but it reminds me of when we were in Disney World and my family and I were stuck in the Carousel of Progress and we couldn't move. And so, like, every time I hear, like, that Chandler saying, I want to fight Conor, it reminds me of being stuck in the Carousel of Progress and hearing, it's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
I thought you were going to say you were stuck on It's a Small World.
I've been stuck on It's a Small World. It sucks.
It's a small world after
all. My mom's favorite ride, by the way. But
it's my grandmother's favorite ride.
But, like, yeah, it makes me think of It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. We were stuck in that one room for like 20 minutes and they didn't shut the shit off. So the song kept playing over and over and over. And I wanted to, like, blast my brains out.
All right, we got one more story here. So the Tampa Tarpons is the single A affiliate of the New York Yankees, formerly the Tampa Yankees. So it's a spring training home where the Yankees play at. It will now also be the 2025 home for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because, well, did you see on Twitter in the last 24 hours the photos coming out from Tropicana Field?
It's not good. The whole roof is ripped off.
At this point, Nick, I don't think if the new stadium truly is going to be ready by 2028, looking at that, it's not worth the $50 million or whatever to play for a couple of seasons.
I thought I saw a rumor now that might not even be ready in 28.
So here's what my opinion, Nick, has not changed. I think this is great on the Yankees. This is a great show. For Tampa, this is really good. They've struggled with crowds with Tropicana Field. An 11,000-seat minor league ballpark is going to be really good for them with the attendance and with the look of everything. And I think, obviously, it was way too late. They can't, let's say, I threw the example in, and we talked about it in our pre-show meeting, the Marlins. The schedule's already made. MLB is not going to make the schedule makers go back in and redo the schedule to fit two teams in there.
Once it's approved, they can't change it.
Correct.
Unless there's an emergency of some sort.
What can happen is if they're not going to make Tropicana, if they're done with Tropicana, 26, 27, you could do the two stadium thing. But if 28, if you said what you just said.
So I have an update. I found it.
Okay.
And a bunch of sources, including ESPN and Bleacher Report, have it. There apparently is a holdup right now for the new stadium.
So here's what I can see happening. If by the middle of the 2027, actually, for time's sake, if by the end of next season, we're in that off season between 26 and 27, the stadium is still, it doesn't look good. I see 2026 they share with the Marlins. If it's not ready, or if it's not a good prognosis by that point, I could see Rob stepping in and saying, "You're moving to Montreal, or you're moving to Nashville temporarily."
At least until you have a stadium.
Yeah, and that's good for MLB because that's a test market now to see if those two cities are ready for an expansion team.
It'll be interesting because, again, Toronto and
Right.
Montreal.
Montreal has had the history with the Expos and how unfortunate.
But what are they
the ending
called, though? That's going to be the interesting thing if they're in Montreal.
They'll just be the Montreal Rays. You cannot rebrand. The Rays are one of the youngest organizations with MLB, but I think out of respect for Tampa, because they could always get the team back, it's not fair that community loses their team because of a natural disaster. So I think they got to be the Montreal Rays or the Nashville Rays. And then if they get the expansion team, Montreal, then you bring the Expos back.
So here's the problem. So Rays top executives sent in a letter to the Pinellas County Commission that the team has already spent $50 million for early work on the $1.3 billion ballpark and cannot proceed further because of delays in approval of bonds for public share of the costs. So they're not funding the stadium themselves.
Yeah, they're putting it on the public.
So if this is not ready by 28, you almost have to blame the Rays for not doing what's needed necessary, partially, to get their stadium done.
But at the same, I understand your point, but I guess it comes down to a vote. If the city is not willing to put, the money in, if the citizens aren't willing to put the money in for a new stadium now, with the natural disaster and stuff, it's like, okay, then maybe I'll relent and say, okay, there's no choice. They're going to have to move.
It says here, this is a quote. So it says, as we made clear at every step of this process, a 2029 ballpark delivery would result in a significantly higher costs that we are not able to absorb alone. I'm assuming that's coming from the Rays side.
Yeah. Well, we know the history about the Rays and money spending.
My question is, and this is more fallacy of a predetermined outcome more than anything, but can you imagine if the Rays make the playoffs and they have to play games at Steinbrenner Field.
I mean, there's a Nick. Well, it goes to what I said yesterday. I mean, the Marlins ballpark's probably going to be available because.
Well, I think they might actually do that. No joke, because they're not going to put that in a single A ballpark for the playoffs.
I just laugh because I mean there is a chance the Rays and Marlins could both, but then I say like, who am I kidding? The Marlins ain't making the playoffs anytime soon.
Okay, so you know how you and I talk about contract language?
Yeah.
So I just found this, that the team's contract with the city of St. Petersburg requires that the Rays play 3 more seasons at Tropicana Field, assuming it is repaired. The cost of fixing the ballpark in time for 26 is pegged at more than $55 million for a building scheduled to be torn down.
And I'm telling you, given what the damage was and the fact that they have this whole new stadium in plans, I don't know. Nick, I don't know if it's worth paying $50 million for 2 or 3
Of
seasons.
course it's not worth it. Like, you're going into a new ballpark.
Right.
It's almost like, and I hate to say this, but like an act of God kind of pushed the process further. I don't mean that in the way it sounded. I'm just saying, like, unfortunately, a natural disaster pushed the process faster.
It doesn't help. And it goes back to what I said last week. Nick. It doesn't help that they're playing out of a minor league field out of necessity because of natural disaster. And meanwhile, Knucklehead over on the West Coast, his team, which has no city affiliation anymore, is playing
Sacramento.
Is playing at a minor league ballpark because their stadium just isn't ready because they're moving to Vegas out of quickness and desperation.
And you know what's even worse? The A's are not paying a fee because the A's owner is friends with Divac, the Kings, the Sacramento Kings owner.
Yeah.
It's amazing. This guy finds a way like shit out of a paper bag. The problem is he's taking that paper bag and lighting it on fire every single time. I just don't understand it.
I just don't know.
I mean, I'll ask the question because I started to say it before. Does the man upstairs deserve a little blame for some of this? Some of it, not all.
I think let's see where we go from here. I think it's going to be from this point forward what happens. Obviously, 2025 is determined. They're going to play at Steinbrenner Field.
Which is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be what happens from 26 on. That's going to be my judging point for the commish.
They're going to have to make new dimensions, though, at Steinbrenner Field.
Right. Well, I mean, the Orioles are moving in their wall again.
I mean, what was it? COVID 2020 when Toronto played in the Buffalo Stadium, and we actually interviewed the GM of the Buffalo team where they played.
Yep.
And they basically had to modify the field to have some major league quality distances. I mean, you know that it's a single A park. It's not made for Major League Baseball distances.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a disaster.
And it's just, I don't know. It's just sad to talk about this, and then I brought the A's back up. I'm not surprised. I'm not. Why should I not be surprised, Nick, that the A's owner, Mr. I want to be the real life major league and a successful real life major league. I want the bad guy to win. Is friends with Vladdy. I had a better day.
Vladdy Divac.
No. Vladdy, I had a better deal 2 days ago, Divac.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you know what's sad and frustrating to me? Like, we're not spending time like talking about like Paul Skeens and Luis Heel winning Rookie of the Year.
Well, the awards are just starting to come out. I think next week we will dedicate a segment to the MLB awards.
I'm saying that more attention is being paid.
I agree. I know, but I understand what you're saying. I agree. But I will say for our sake, the awards are just starting to trickle out. Let's wait till next week when all of the awards are out and we will talk about them here.
I will say, though, congratulations to Pat Murphy winning Manager of the Year with the Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, because, well, even though they lost again in the first round, but tough job to win it. But
especially after losing Corbin Burns,
who is a free agent again.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what Corbin Burns goes for you. But again, that's all for next week. We are way over time. We had to do a 90-minute. Hopefully next week we're back to normal.
Let's just put it this way. It's one of those episodes where all shit broke loose with the news.
Yeah.
But we like these episodes in a sense, though, because we have fun, but we can't do this every week.
I'm just tired the next day. Follow us at ETB Sports and at ETB Network, youtube.com/ETB Network. Hit subscribe. Help us continue our climb to 900 and 1,000. Listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, especially if you don't want to see our ugly mugs. If you are listening on those platforms, make sure to go to youtube.com/ETB Network. Shout out to our friends over at Playback. We are going to get a couple of NBA games again soon. Obviously, the NBA Cup is now underway. Or was it the Emirates Cup now?
It's the NBA Emirates Cup, I think. I don't know.
Oh, joy.
I didn't know that NBA Fans demo was flying on Emirates.
I guess so. All right. I'm done here. I'm spent.
Yeah, I'm spent. I think I've had enough of this episode. So for Tom Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. This was episode 258. We will see you next week for episode 259. Good night, everybody.